From the very first whispers of human thought, we've gazed at the stars and asked the same burning questions: where did it all begin, and how will it end? Every culture, every civilization has spun its own breathtaking tales to explain the cosmos, stories so powerful they shaped kingdoms, inspired wars, and still echo in our hearts today. Picture the Norse giants clashing in the frozen void of Ginnungagap, or the Hawaiian goddess Pele shaping islands with her fiery touch. These aren't just stories, they're the lifeblood of ancient societies, attempts to make sense of a universe far grander than ourselves. And what's truly astonishing, even now in our age of science and satellites, these myths haven't lost their grip on us. They linger in our books, our art, our dreams, because they speak to something primal, our endless hunger to understand the mystery of existence. Think about it. Beneath the surface of every creation myth lies a map of human fear, hope, and wonder. The Aboriginal dreamtime where ancestral spirits sculpted the land with song. The Babylonian epic Enuma Elish, where the world is born from the corpse of a slain monster. These aren't just fantastical yarns, they're windows into how our ancestors saw their place in the cosmos. They reveal what terrified them, what inspired them, what made them feel connected to something vast and sacred. And here's the thrilling part: these stories didn't just comfort the past, they shaped it. They dictated laws, justified kings, and even guided explorers across uncharted oceans. The myths we're about to unravel weren't bedtime stories, they were the bedrock of civilizations. So why do they still captivate us? Maybe it's because, deep down, we still crave that same awe. In a world where answers are just a click away, there's magic in these ancient uncertainties. The way the Mayans believed the world had been destroyed and remade 4 times, or how the Maori saw the sky and earth as lovers forcibly torn apart. Over the next 30 legendary tales, we'll journey across continents and millennia, from the icy realms of Norse prophecy to the lush gardens of Chinese creation. You'll discover how these myths mirror each other in startling ways, as if humanity's collective imagination kept stumbling upon the same truths. This isn't just a tour of folklore, it's an excavation of the human soul. So ready yourself. The cosmos is about to unfold in ways you've never imagined. Among the most mesmerizing visions of creation is one that appears across cultures, a cosmic egg floating in the void holding the spark of everything. In Hinduism, this idea takes form as the Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb from which the universe bursts forth. The Rigveda sings of it as a radiant orb suspended in the endless dark, an egg of fire and potential waiting to crack open. And when it does, what emerges isn't just stars or gods, it's the very fabric of existence itself. This golden egg isn't just a one-time beginning, it's a symbol of infinite cycles. Think of it like the universe taking a deep breath in and out, expanding and contracting in an eternal rhythm. The Hiranyagarbha represents the moment before time begins, the silence before the first note of creation. But why an egg? Because across myths, eggs embody the perfect balance, something fragile yet unbreakable, small yet containing everything. They're nature's ultimate paradox, simplicity hiding boundless complexity. What's striking is how this idea echoes far beyond Hinduism. In Chinese myth, Pangu hatches from a cosmic egg to shape the heavens and earth. The Finnish Kalevala describes the world born from a duck's egg shattered across the waters. Even modern science plays with this imagery. The Big Bang Theory paints a picture of a singular, unimaginably dense point erupting into reality. It's as if humanity keeps circling back to the same profound truth. Creation isn't a straight line, but a loop, a wheel that keeps turning. The beauty of the Hiranyagarbha is that it doesn't just explain where we come from, it invites us to ponder where we're going. If the universe hatched from golden light once, could it happen again? Are we living in the latest incarnation of an endless cycle? These questions aren't just philosophical, they're woven into rituals, art, and even the architecture of temples. The egg isn't just a story, it's a mirror held up to the cosmos, reflecting our deepest awe at the mystery of being. Now imagine a darkness so complete it isn't just the absence of light, it's the absence of everything. This is chaos, the yawning void at the heart of Greek creation, where nothing yet was and everything was possible. From this infinite emptiness, Hesiod's Theogony tells us, the first forces burst forth not with a whimper but with a cosmic shudder. First came Gaia, the earth herself, solid and unshakable. Then Tartarus, the abyss beneath the abyss, a place so deep even the gods feared it. And finally Eros, not the playful cherub of later tales, but the raw, primal force of attraction that would bind the universe together. What's mesmerizing here isn't just the cast of characters, it's the logic of the myth. Chaos doesn't create a tidy, finished world. It gives birth to opposites, earth and underworld, love and abyss. This isn't creation as a neat blueprint, it's creation as collision, a cosmic dance of tension and balance. Think of it like the first brushstrokes on a blank canvas, the wild, necessary contrasts that make art alive. Gaia, the fertile ground beneath our feet, needs Tartarus, the unfathomable dark, just as day needs night. And then there's Eros, the wild card. In later myths, love softens into romance, but here, it's the engine of creation, the invisible pull that drives atoms to collide, seeds to sprout, and gods to war. Without Eros, chaos would remain barren. This isn't just poetry, it's startlingly close to how modern physics describes the early universe. A seething soup of forces pushing and pulling until something sticks. The Greeks didn't have telescopes, but they understood something fundamental: creation isn't passive. It's a fight, a seduction, a spark struck against the dark. What makes this myth endure isn't just its drama, but its honesty. Unlike tidy origin stories where a god simply wills the world into being, the Greek cosmos claws its way out of chaos, messy and unresolved. The universe isn't handed to us perfect, it's built through struggle and desire. That's why these forces, Gaia's strength, Tartarus' terror, Eros' hunger, don't vanish after creation. They echo through every Greek myth that follows, reminding us that order is never permanent. It's a ceasefire with chaos, a balance forever in flux. Consider how this mirrors human experience. We don't emerge fully formed, we become through stumbles and yearnings. The Greeks knew this truth in their bones. Their creation myth isn't just about the birth of gods, it's about the birth of meaning, how we carve sense from the void. Every time we plant a seed in soil or feel love's irresistible pull, we're replaying that first furious moment when chaos gasped and the world began. Now picture a world where creation isn't an event that happened once, it's a song that never ends. This is the dream time, the heart of Aboriginal Australian mythology, where the ancestors didn't just shape the land, they sang it into being, note by note, step by step. Imagine giants walking across an empty continent, their voices weaving valleys into existence, their footprints becoming waterholes, their breath stirring the first winds. Every rock, every tree, every river is a stanza in an epic poem written in the earth itself. This isn't just a story about beginnings, it's a living map. The paths the ancestors walked, known as songlines, crisscross Australia like invisible threads, connecting places to the stories that birthed them. To follow a songline isn't just to travel, it's to remember, to retrace the steps of creation. A mountain isn't just a mountain, it's the frozen form of the rainbow serpent coiled in eternal sleep. A river isn't just water, it's the trail left by the kangaroo ancestor leaping toward the horizon. The land isn't passive, it's alive, pulsing with the memory of those first songs. What's breathtaking is how this myth flips our usual ideas of time. In the dream time, past and present aren't separate, they're layers of the same moment. When Aboriginal elders perform rituals or paint ancient symbols, they're not reenacting history, they're stepping into it, merging with the ancestors to keep creation alive. Think of it like a musical chord that never fades. The first vibration still hums in the soil, in the stars, in the hands of those who honor it. This deep connection to place isn't just spiritual, it's practical. For thousands of years, songlines served as navigational tools, encoding survival knowledge in melody. Which plants heal? Where does water hide in drought? The answers aren't in books, they're in the land's rhythm, passed down through generations. It's a system so elegant, so precise, that modern scientists still study it in awe. The Dreamtime isn't locked in the past. It's a manual for living in harmony with a world that's listening. And here's the radical truth at its core: humans aren't the heroes of this story. We're latecomers, guests in a world the ancestors already perfected. Our role isn't to conquer or exploit, but to sing along, to add our voices to the chorus without drowning it out. In an age of climate crisis, that message lands like a thunderclap. The Dreamtime doesn't just explain how the world was made, it whispers how to save it. Now shift your gaze from the endless outback to a world suspended between sea and sky. In Japanese Shinto belief, creation begins not with fire or song, but with water, a vast, formless ocean stretching in every direction. Here, the divine siblings Izanagi and Izanami stand upon the floating bridge of heaven, peering into the swirling depths below. Their tool isn't a sculptor's chisel or a godly command, but a simple jeweled spear. When they dip it into the brine and stir, something miraculous happens. Drops of salt water fall from the spear's tip, coagulating into the very first land, the island of Onogoro. This isn't just land emerging, it's the birth of order from liquid chaos, a single solid point in a world of endless motion. What makes this myth so mesmerizing is its intimacy. Unlike cosmic eggs or earth-shaping giants, this creation feels tactile, almost experimental. Izanagi and Izanami aren't distant architects, they're craftspeople, testing the waters literally and figuratively. Their spear becomes a divine stirring rod, blending elements until something new precipitates. There's a humility here that's rare in creation myths, a sense of trial and error that mirrors how humans interact with nature. The islands of Japan don't burst forth fully formed. They crystallize one droplet at a time, like salt forming on the rim of a tide pool. Now contrast this with other Earth-centric myths. In the Greek tradition, Gaia is the land emerging whole from chaos. In Norse mythology, the earth is carved from the corpse of the giant Ymir. But in Shinto, land isn't born from violence or spontaneity. It's cultivated, coaxed into being through patient, deliberate action. Water, typically a symbol of destruction in myths like the Babylonian Tiamat or the biblical flood, becomes the womb of creation here. Even the tools differ, no celestial hammers or divine breath, just a spear, an object as practical as it is sacred. But the true brilliance of this myth lies in what happens next. Izanagi and Izanami don't just create land, they descend to it, stepping onto the imperfect, muddy surface of Onogoro to perform a ritual that will birth the rest of the archipelago. Like the Aboriginal ancestors, they walk the land into existence, but with a twist, their union is both sacred and flawed, leading to the birth of both islands and misfires, life and death. This duality is quintessentially Shinto. Creation isn't pristine but messy, balanced between purity and brokenness. The floating world isn't a finished masterpiece. It's an ongoing collaboration between the divine and the elements, as fluid as the sea that birthed it. Consider how this reflects Japan's own geological reality, an archipelago forged by volcanoes and earthquakes, where land is both permanent and precarious. The myth doesn't shy away from instability. It embraces it, turning the act of creation into a dance with uncertainty. Even now, this watery genesis echoes in Japanese culture, from the reverence for natural hot springs to the annual festivals honoring the sea's bounty. The floating world isn't just a story, it's a worldview, one that finds beauty not in rigid permanence, but in the ever-shifting balance between liquid and solid, movement and stillness. And here's the profound paradox. While many myths seek to explain how the world became fixed and stable, the Shinto tradition reminds us that creation is ongoing. Every wave that reshapes a coastline, every volcanic eruption that births new land, is a reenactment of Izanagi and Izanami's first stirring. The spear isn't retired, it's eternally poised above the waters, ready to stir again. In a world facing rising seas and eroding shores, this ancient myth feels startlingly modern, a testament to resilience, adaptation, and the courage to build atop the restless deep. Far beneath the surface of the world we know, in a place where light and shadow twist like roots in dark soil, the Dene people tell of beginnings that span not one world but 5. This isn't a story of instant creation, it's a journey, a grueling ascent through layers of existence, each more treacherous than the last. The first world was small, a dark hollow where insect-like beings crawled in silence. But when discord spread like poison, the spirits guided them upward, not as punishment but as evolution. The second world bloomed blue with strange skies, home to swallow people who sang with clipped, buzzing voices. Yet again, when greed and violence took hold, the earth itself seemed to recoil, forcing another exodus. Here's what's astonishing: each world isn't just a physical place, it's a test. The third world, vast and red as desert stone, taught the consequences of jealousy when twin brothers warred over magic, flooding the land with their rage. The fourth world, gleaming and white, revealed the cost of deception when a trickster's lie unleashed monstrous winds. Every ascent demanded sacrifice, every failure carved wisdom into the survivor's bones. These aren't arbitrary punishments, they're the universe insisting on balance. What makes the Navajo emergence myth so profound is its insistence that humanity earned this world. The fifth world, our world, wasn't handed down by benevolent gods. It was reached through suffering and hard-won lessons, like climbers grasping for a higher ledge. The first people didn't emerge flawless, they carried the scars of every misstep below. That's why traditional Dene teachings emphasize Hajo walking in beauty, in harmony. After 4 worlds of imbalance, this one must be treated as sacred. Consider the imagery. Emergence isn't a single moment but a spiral. The sacred directions east, south, west, north aren't just compass points, they're markers of the journey, each representing a world left behind. Even now, Navajo ceremonies reenact this climb, from the black god's fire in the lowest world to the dawn light of the 5th. The lesson: creation isn't static. It's a cycle of struggle and renewal, where every choice ripples through the layers of existence. Perhaps most striking is how this mirrors ecological truth. The Dene didn't see themselves as rulers of this world, but as its latest custodians, responsible for maintaining the delicate equilibrium skipped generations fought to achieve. When a Navajo elder says, "The mountains are your leaders," they're invoking that hard-earned wisdom. After 4 collapses, the 5th chance mustn't be wasted. This myth isn't just about origins, it's a warning, a prayer, and a map for survival woven together. The sky splits like rotting fabric as the monstrous wolf Fenrir breaks free, his jaws stretching from earth to heaven. This is Ragnarök, the doom of the gods, where the entire Norse cosmos collapses in a symphony of fire and fang. The serpent Jörmungandr thrashes from the sea, venom boiling the oceans. Surt the fire giant marches across the rainbow bridge with a sword brighter than the sun, setting the world tree Yggdrasil ablaze from roots to crown. Every god meets their destined end. Odin swallowed whole by Fenrir, Thor slaying Jörmungandr only to drown in its poison, Loki and Heimdall cutting each other down in mutual annihilation. Even the sun and moon are devoured by wolves, plunging creation into final darkness. Yet what makes Ragnarök unparalleled among apocalypses isn't its violence, it's the chilling inevitability. The Norse saw destiny as a woven tapestry, its threads unchangeable. When the gods first bound Fenrir with magical chains, they knew those chains would snap. When Thor fished for Jörmungandr, he knew their duel would one day be fatal. Ragnarök isn't punishment for sin or divine whim. It's simply time's expiration date ticking forward since creation's first breath. The gods don't cower, they strap on their armor with grim resolve, choosing to meet fate headlong. There's a strange nobility in that, a courage that resonated deeply with Viking warriors facing their own mortality. Then comes the twist that elevates this myth from tragedy to revelation. As the embers cool and the floodwaters recede, two figures emerge from Yggdrasil's scorched roots, Lif and Lithrasir, life and life's desire. They're not gods, not giants, but a single human couple hidden in the world tree's hollow. The sun, swallowed during Ragnarök, is reborn as a daughter who lights a fresh sky. The earth rises renewed from the sea, green and fertile. Even the gods' golden chess pieces are found gleaming in the grass, hinting at cycles beyond cycles. This rebirth isn't a sanitized reset, it's a metamorphosis. The new world isn't free of danger or strife, but it carries the wisdom of what came before. Unlike biblical floods or Aztec sun deaths requiring constant divine intervention, Ragnarök's renewal is baked into the universe's design. Destruction and creation aren't opposites, they're partners in an eternal dance. Modern scholars see striking parallels between Ragnarök and ecological succession forest fires that seem catastrophic but allow new growth, or volcanic eruptions that enrich the soil. The Norse understood something science now confirms. Endings aren't permanent, just transitions. When Vikings buried their dead in ships set aflame, they weren't just honoring warriors, they were reenacting the cosmos itself, trusting that from ash comes resurrection. Beneath the fiery gaze of the fifth sun, the Aztecs whispered of 4 worlds that had already burned, drowned, and shattered, each one a failed experiment in creation. The first era, ruled by the god Tezcatlipoca, ended when jaguars swarmed from the shadows, tearing apart the giants who had grown arrogant under his black sun. The Second Age, governed by Quetzalcoatl's gentle winds, collapsed into hurricanes so fierce they swept humanity into the skies, leaving only monkeys clinging to the trees. Then came the Third Sun, a world of volcanic fury under Tlaloc's reign, where fire reigned until the earth melted into lava and the survivors became birds fleeing the inferno. And the fourth, a deluge so vast it swallowed the cosmos whole, with people transformed into fish, their last breaths bubbling away in the dark. This isn't just a catalogue of disasters, it's a cosmic lesson in impermanence. Each sun didn't merely end, it transformed, its destruction birthing something new from the wreckage. The Aztecs saw time not as a straight line, but as a spiral where eras rose and fell like waves. Yet here's the chilling twist. They believed their own world, the fifth sun, was doomed from the start. This sun, forged in the sacrificial fire of 2 gods who leaped into a divine furnace, was destined to die in earthquakes unless humanity fed it. That's where the heart of the myth turns razor sharp. The fifth sun's hunger wasn't metaphorical. Aztec priests climbed pyramid steps with obsidian blades, offering still-beating hearts to Tanatea, the sun god, because they believed his journey across the sky required human energy. Without it, the sun would stagger, the stars would shift, and the earth would crack open. Modern minds recoil, but in Aztec cosmology, this wasn't cruelty, it was contractual. The gods had sacrificed themselves to create this world. Humans owed a debt of blood to keep it spinning. The genius of this myth lies in its brutal honesty. Unlike Ragnarök's cyclical rebirth or the Navajo's hard-won harmony, the Aztec cosmos dangled on a knife's edge, demanding constant vigilance. Every drought, every eclipse was a warning: the sun is dying. Rituals weren't superstition, they were emergency repairs to a crumbling universe. When Cortés arrived, some Aztecs even wondered if he was Quetzalcoatl, returning to herald the fifth sun's end. Yet buried in the terror is a startlingly modern truth. The Aztecs understood their world as fragile. Their myths didn't promise eternal stability, but a precarious balance maintained through collective effort. In an age of climate collapse that hits differently, we may not offer hearts on altars, but we grasp the core idea that survival demands sacrifice. The fifth sun still shines, but the Aztecs would ask, What are we feeding it? Before the ink dried on the Bible's flood story, another ancient civilization was whispering of a deluge so vast it rewrote the world. Utnapishtim's tale in the Epic of Gilgamesh, etched onto clay tablets 1,000 years before Hebrew scribes picked up their pens. Picture this: the gods, not in unified wrath but in petty council, vote to drown humanity with a roar of rain and rivers. The reason, not sin or corruption, but the noise of people, their clamor rising like smoke, disturbing divine sleep. Only the trickster god, rebels in secret, whispering to Utnapishtim through a reed wall, "Tear down your house, build a boat, load it with every living seed." What follows isn't just a prototype for Noah's Ark, it's a masterclass in survival. Utnapishtim's vessel is a perfect cube, a floating ziggurat with 6 decks, sealed in bitumen against the raging waters. For 7 days, the storm strips the earth bare, until even the gods cower like dogs at the destruction they unleashed. When the flood subsides, Utnapishtim releases a dove, then a swallow, then a raven, the same sequence later copied in Genesis, but here the ending twists. Instead of a rainbow covenant, the gods huddle in remorse, starving without human offerings. They grant Utnapishtim immortality, not as reward, but as apology: "We overreacted." Now contrast this with Noah's story. The bones are identical: divine wrath, a righteous survivor, animals paired for rebirth, but the flavor is utterly different. Yahweh's flood is judicial, meticulous, a moral reset button. Every detail, from the ark's precise dimensions to the 40-day countdown, screams order and purpose. Utnapishtim's ordeal, though, reeks of celestial impulsiveness. The Mesopotamian gods aren't omnipotent judges. They're dysfunctional landlords, regretful after throwing the tantrum of the eon. Yet beneath these differences pulses a shared human terror, the fear that creation is fragile, that water can erase us with a sigh. From the Maya's hurricane moon to the Hindu Manu's fish-guided ark, flood myths surge through cultures like a shared nightmare. Maybe because floods leave geological scars, sediment layers show real deluges drowned Mesopotamia's cities around 2900 BCE. Or perhaps it's deeper. Water is the universal womb and tomb, the element that both gives life and takes it without mercy. Here's what Utnapishtim's story offers that Noah's doesn't: a glimpse of divine fallibility. When his gods weep, their tears tasting of salt and shame, they admit a truth Yahweh never would: destruction isn't always just. Sometimes it's just chaos, and survival isn't about virtue, it's about luck, cleverness, and a well-timed whisper through a wall. High above the earth, where the blue of day meets the black of eternity, Niam the sky god crouches at the center of an invisible loom, spinning the universe thread by golden thread. In Akan tradition, creation isn't built with brute force or fiery commands. It's woven, a delicate dance of patience and precision. Picture a spider's web glistening at dawn, each strand perfectly placed to catch the light without breaking under the weight of dew. That's Niam's masterpiece, a cosmic tapestry where stars are knots in the design, where winds hum along the fibers, and where every living thing, from the tallest baobab to the smallest ant, vibrates with the web's silent music. What's mesmerizing here isn't just the imagery, it's the physics of the myth. A spider's web is both fragile and unbreakable. Tug one thread and the whole structure trembles. So too with Niam's creation. The Akan understood something profound about interdependence long before ecologists coined the term web of life. A hunter's careless step here might stir a storm there. A kindness offered to a stranger could ripple through generations. This isn't superstition, it's a map of causality, a reminder that existence hangs by threads we can't always see. Now listen closer. Niam didn't work alone. In some tellings, his partner Anansi, the trickster spider, helps stretch the web across the void. Here's the stroke of genius: the god of order collaborates with chaos itself. Anansi, whose pranks upend expectations, ensures the web isn't too rigid, leaving room for surprise and change. Together, they spin a world where structure and spontaneity balance like a spider suspended between branches. This myth lies brightest in the oral traditions of Ghana's griots, where stories aren't just told, they're performed, with hands mimicking the spider's dance, voices rising and falling like plucked web strings. To hear a griot recount Niam's weaving is to witness the myth in motion, each word a new thread added to an ancient pattern. There's no written scripture, no frozen text. Just like a web, the story stays strong by being constantly remade. And here's the lesson coiled at its heart. Creation isn't a one-time act. Niam's fingers never stop moving. Even now, his web stretches as novas burst and black holes swallow light as forests grow and cities rise. The Akan don't speak of a finished world, but of one eternally in progress, demanding our care. Snap too many threads and the whole design may unravel. Yet with every act of balance, every stroke of compassion, every moment of stewardship, we help weave the pattern onward. Imagine a tree so vast its roots drink from 3 different wells, its branches cradle entire kingdoms, and its trunk pulses with the weight of the cosmos. This is Yggdrasil, the world tree of Norse mythology, not just a symbol of life, but the very scaffolding of existence. Its name whispers of terror and awe, meaning Odin's horse, a reference to the god who once hung himself from its branches for 9 nights to gain wisdom. That paradoxical image captures Yggdrasil's essence. It's both cradle and gallows, a living axis where creation and sacrifice intertwine. Beneath its roots sprawl the 9 realms, each a universe unto itself. At the canopy's peak gleams Asgard, home of the Aesir gods, its golden halls shimmering like dew on leaves. Midgard, our Middle Earth, nestles in the trunk's embrace, connected to Asgard by the rainbow bridge Bifrost. Down in the roots lie darker domains, Niflheim's freezing mists, Muspelheim's molten rivers, and Hell's silent halls where the dishonored dead wander. Yet Yggdrasil isn't just real estate for gods and ghosts. It's the circulatory system of the cosmos. The squirrel Ratatoska scurries up and down its bark, carrying insults between the eagle perched in its crown and the dragon Nidhöggr gnawing at its roots, a metaphor for how conflict fuels the world's balance. What's astonishing is how Yggdrasil suffers to sustain creation. The poem Völuspá describes it as the noble tree, soaked with shining loam, but also shaken and groaning. Its leaves feed stags whose antlers scrape the sky. Its sap becomes the mead of poets. Yet every day Nidhöggr chews its roots, and the gods hold court beneath it, deciding fates that strain its limbs. This isn't passive greenery. It's a living entity enduring perpetual torment so the worlds might live. Perhaps most haunting is Yggdrasil's role in Ragnarök. When the final battle comes, the tree itself will shudder, its branches whipping like a ship's mast in a storm. Yet the myths hint that from its scorched remnants, a new sapling will rise, creation reborn from the same enduring template. This cyclical resilience mirrors nature's own, forests that regrow after wildfires, ecosystems that adapt to devastation. The brilliance of Yggdrasil lies in its layered contradictions. It's both map and territory, a guide to the cosmos and the cosmos itself. Modern science tells us trees communicate through fungal networks, a wood-wide web eerily reminiscent of Yggdrasil's connective power. The Norse didn't worship the tree, they recognized it as kin, a fellow sufferer in the beautiful, brutal work of keeping the world alive. When the cosmos exhales its final breath, when stars gutter out like spent candles and time itself unravels, that's when Shiva begins to dance. In Hindu cosmology, destruction isn't an ending. It's the universe folding back into its source, a cosmic reset triggered by the rhythm of Nataraja's footsteps. This is Pralaya, the great dissolution where entire universes dissolve into Shiva's outstretched palms like sand slipping through an hourglass. Unlike Ragnarök's fiery battle or the biblical flood's moral reckoning, Pralaya is neither punishment nor accident. It's the inevitable conclusion of a cycle as natural as breathing. Picture Nataraja frozen in mid-motion, one foot raised in ecstasy, the other crushing ignorance beneath his toes. Flames ripple from his outstretched hands, not just fire, but the raw energy of annihilation. His wild hair whips with the force of his dance, each strand a galaxy spinning toward oblivion. Yet here's the paradox: the same hands that wield destruction also offer reassurance. One palm faces outward in the Abhaya Mudra, fear not, while the other holds the Damaru drum whose beat births new creation. Destruction and creation aren't opposites here, they're two movements in the same eternal dance. What sets Pralaya apart is its precision. Hindu texts describe 4 types of dissolution, from the nightly Nitya Pralaya that erases dreams to the Mahapralaya that swallows universes whole. Time doesn't just end, it resets like a river flowing back into its spring. Shiva's dance isn't chaotic, it follows the exacting mathematics of cosmic cycles, where universes live and die according to yugas, epochs lasting millions of earthly years. Modern physics echoes this almost eerily. The heat-death of the universe theorizes a similar fade into entropy, though science hasn't yet offered Hinduism's hopeful coda the promise of rebirth. Contrast this with linear apocalypses like Christianity's Revelation, where the world ends once, culminating in final judgment. Pralaya offers no pearly gates or lake of fire, just the quiet certainty that dissolution precedes renewal. Even Shiva's role defies Western expectations. He isn't a wrathful destroyer, but the universe's recycler, clearing space for Brahma's next act of creation. It's the difference between a house burning down and a forest fire that enriches the soil for new growth. The genius of this myth lies in its emotional resonance. While doomsday prophecies stoke fear, Pralaya offers a kind of serenity. If destruction is baked into existence, then loss, personal or planetary, isn't a rupture in the plan but part of the plan itself. Temples across India depict Nataraja not in halls of horror, but as the centerpiece of worship, his dance a reminder that endings are themselves sacred. After all, how could there be spring without winter, dawn without night? Perhaps most striking is how this ancient idea mirrors modern cosmology's cyclic universe models, where big bangs might be followed by big crunches in an endless loop. Science and myth rarely align so neatly, but then, the sages who envisioned Shiva's dance weren't just telling stories. They were mapping the deepest rhythms of existence, finding beauty in the breaking. In the beginning, there was nothing but Tipo, the endless, suffocating dark where time had no meaning and space no edges. This wasn't just the absence of light, it was a living void, thick with potential, pulsing like a womb waiting to quicken. Then from that darkness emerged Ranganui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, locked in a lover's embrace so tight their children grew cramped in the hollow between them. Imagine being born into that closeness, no room to stretch, no light to see by, just the heat of parental bodies pressing in from every side. The Maori creation story isn't about gods shaping the world from afar. It's a family drama written in the bones of the land itself. Ranganui and Papa weren't distant creators, they were parents whose love became a cage. Their children Tain, god of forests, Tohara, god of storms, Tangaroa, god of the sea, lived in perpetual twilight, their bodies twisted, their voices muffled by the weight of their parents' bodies. And here's where the story takes its first revolutionary turn. The children don't endure this suffering silently, they scheme. Tain Mahuta, the future weaver of life, proposes the unthinkable separation. He presses his feet against Papa's chest, his hands against Rangi's shoulders, and pushes with the slow, inexorable force of a sapling splitting rock. The others join, all except Tohara, god of winds, who wails at the thought of his parents' pain. What follows isn't just a cosmic divorce, it's the birth of the world as we know it. As Rangi and Papa are wrenched apart, light floods the space between them. Tiao, the world of brightness and breath. Forests sprout from Papa's body, rivers carve her skin, while Rangi's tears become the first rain. But this myth's genius lies in its refusal to paint this separation as purely triumphant. Yes, the children gain freedom, but the cost lingers. Rangi's sorrow stains the dawn red. Papa's sighs rise as mist from the earth. Even now, Maori orators gesture to the horizon when speaking of grief, where sky and earth almost touch but never reunite. The familial metaphor transforms geology into something intimate. Earthquakes aren't just tectonic shifts, they're Papa shuddering at a memory of Rangi's touch. Compare this to other sky-earth separation myths. In Greek mythology, Gaia and Uranus are torn apart by their son Kronos in an act of brutal vengeance. The Maori version harbors no such violence. Tane doesn't act from rage but from necessity, a child outgrowing a cradle even as he regrets the ache it causes. The story doesn't condemn Rangi and Papa's love, it honors its sacrifice. Their separation isn't destruction, it's the first act of parenting, creating space for their children to breathe. This tension between connection and autonomy resonates far beyond myth. Modern psychology confirms how children must metaphorically separate from parents to forge their own identities, yet that severing leaves scars on both sides. The Maori myth acknowledges this universal truth with rare compassion, offering no villains, only bittersweet choices. When you stand on a New Zealand beach at dusk, watching the sky bleed into the sea, you're witnessing more than a sunset. You're seeing the oldest wound and the first gift of creation. Long before scientists warned of rising temperatures, the Cherokee people spoke of a world consumed by flames, not as metaphor but as prophecy. Their elders tell of 3 previous worlds, each destroyed in its turn. The first overrun by hungry beasts, the second shattered when the sky vault cracked and drowned the earth, the third lost to endless winds that scattered humanity like dust. Now we live in the fourth world, balanced precariously between pillars of fire and water, with a chilling promise when the scales tip too far, the fire next time will come. This isn't just folklore, it's a stark ecological warning encoded in story. The Cherokee vision of destruction by fire mirrors their understanding of balance. Just as controlled burns renew forests, clearing dead wood to make way for new growth, their myths suggest creation requires cyclical purification, but uncontrolled fire. That's annihilation. The prophets didn't describe a cleansing blaze. They spoke of drought so deep the rivers gasp for air, of trees exploding into torches from the inside out, of the sun itself leaning too close. Sound familiar? Modern climate activists hear eerie echoes in these ancient voices. When Cherokee elders today speak of the fire prophecy, they point to California's wildfire infernos, to Australian forests reduced to ash, to permafrost melting like fat in a skillet. The old stories never mentioned coal plants or carbon dioxide, but they understood humanity's capacity to disrupt nature's equilibrium. The third world fell when people grew greedy and forgot reciprocity. The fourth will burn when they ignore the sacred duty to tend the flames, both literal and metaphorical. What sets this myth apart is its specificity. Unlike Ragnarok's grand battle or Pralaya's serene dissolution, the Cherokee apocalypse unfolds through tangible signs: animals fleeing to higher ground, crops withering before they fruit, the scent of smoke lingering even when no fire burns. These aren't mystical portents, they're symptoms we now recognize as climate collapse. The prophecy even prescribes a test. When the tallest trees ignite from their crowns downward, the end is near. Forestry experts today call this crowning, a hallmark of megafires fueled by overheated, drought-stricken landscapes. Yet woven through the terror is a thread of agency. The Cherokee don't see their prophecy as inevitable but as conditional, a future written in pencil, not stone. Traditional teachings emphasize tohai, the principle of balance. Every action, from hunting to harvesting, must consider its impact 7 generations ahead. Ceremonies like the green corn dance renew covenants with the earth, literally replanting what was taken. The fire next time comes only if humanity forgets its role as caretaker rather than conqueror. This myth resonates precisely because it refuses to let us off the hook. The Aztecs fed their sun with blood. The Norse accepted Ragnarök as fate. but the Cherokee fire is a mirror held up to our choices, one where the reflection grows clearer with every record-breaking heat wave, every vanishing glacier. The elders aren't waiting for doom, they're lighting council fires, teaching the old ways of controlled burns and rainwater capture, proving that prophecies aren't about predicting the future but changing it. After all, if the world before drowned and this one burns, what might the fifth world be? That answer lies not in the stars but in our hands. The gods scraped their first attempts across the earth like discarded sketches, men of soft mud that melted in the rain, wooden puppets that rattled without souls. But in the sacred Popol Vuh, the Maya scribes tell of the moment creation finally held its shape, when the divine hands reached not for clay or timber but for golden kernels of maize. Picture the scene: gods grinding corn like celestial alchemists, mixing the paste with water from the mountain springs, kneading a dough that would become flesh and bone. This wasn't just craftsmanship, it was revelation. After failed experiments with brittle materials, the gods discovered the one substance that could bear wisdom, gratitude, and memory, the same sacred crop that fed empires. What's striking is how this myth mirrors real agricultural history. Maize wasn't just a staple for the Maya, it was a miracle of bioengineering, transformed over centuries from a wild grass with thumb-sized ears into the towering stalks that sustained cities. The Popol Vuh doesn't shy from this parallel. The first true humans aren't shaped from celestial ether or stardust, but from the very crop they'll spend their lives cultivating. It's a profound circle. We are made of corn, and corn is remade by us. Consider the symbolic weight. Unlike Adam, molded from passive clay, or Prometheus, fire-stealing rebels, the maize people embody interdependence. They're not given dominion over nature, they're kin to it. Modern genetics confirms this intimacy. Human saliva enzymes uniquely adapted to break down maize sugars, while the plant's survival depended on human hands to plant its tightly wrapped kernels. The myth captures this symbiosis perfectly. The gods mix the corn dough with their own blood, binding humanity's fate to the divine through the shared labor of growth. This agricultural reverence pulses through Maya culture. Temples aligned with equinoxes marked planting seasons. Kings dressed as maize gods during coronations, their headdresses sprouting golden tassels. Even the word for human, winak, echoes the word for corn, ixim. When Spanish friars burned Maya codices, they missed the deeper text written in daily life, in the tortilla, as circular perfection mirroring the sun's path, in the milpa fields where corn grew alongside beans and squash in a sacred triad. The genius of the Popol Vuh's creation story lies in its humility. Other myths crown humanity as conquerors or chosen ones, but the Maya saw themselves as collaborators in an ongoing act of creation. Each harvest wasn't just meal prep, it was ritual rebirth, the earth proving once more that it could yield divinity from dirt. When drought withered fields or storms flattened crops, it wasn't just hunger the Maya feared, it was the unraveling of their very flesh, a return to formless dough. Today, as monocultures deplete soils and climate shifts threaten ancient farming traditions, the myths warning whispers across centuries. The maize people only thrived when they remembered what they were made of. The Popol Vuh doesn't offer an endpoint to creation, just an endless, golden cycle of tending and being tended, a reminder that we are what we honor. We live in the Kali Yuga, the age of discord, where righteousness withers like a vine in drought and humanity's darkest impulses rule unchecked. According to Hindu cosmology, time isn't a straight line but a wheel spinning through 4 eras, each darker than the last. We've passed through the golden Satya Yuga, when truth walked barefoot among humans, through the Silver and Bronze Ages where virtue slowly eroded, and now we're trapped in the iron grip of Kali Yuga, an epoch so corrupt it makes our ancestors' worst nightmares seem tame. The signs are everywhere: rulers who feast while their people starve, sacred rivers choked with poison, friendships broken over whispered lies, and families splintered by greed. Even the earth herself grows weary, her soils exhausted, her storms furious. But here's the twist that chills the blood. Kali Yuga isn't just a metaphor. Ancient texts like the Vishnu Purana and the Mahabharata map its progression with eerie precision. They predicted a time when money would replace honor as life's measure, when the humble would kneel before the arrogant, when false gurus would peddle spirituality like cheap perfume. Sound familiar? The texts even foresaw humanity's obsession with towering buildings and machines that think skyscrapers and artificial intelligence mirrored in verses thousands of years old. Yet the most haunting prophecy isn't about technology or politics. It's about the human heart growing colder, love calcifying into transaction, and compassion becoming a relic. This isn't just doom-scrolling in Sanskrit. The Kali Yuga myth offers a lens to examine modern societal decay theories, from the collapse of communal bonds to the rise of nihilistic consumerism. Psychologists warn of rising loneliness epidemics. Economists chart wealth gaps wider than the Ganges. Even environmental collapse fits the script. The Puranas describe forests shrinking, species vanishing, and seasons unraveling as hallmarks of the age. But unlike Western apocalyptic tales, Kali Yuga's end isn't fire and brimstone. It's a whisper, the arrival of Kalki, the final avatar of Vishnu, riding a white horse with a sword that cleaves through ignorance. His coming doesn't punish, it resets. What's revolutionary is the myth's insistence that decay contains its own antidote. Kalki emerges not from heaven, but from the collective despair of a world sick of its own rot. The darker Kali Yuga grows, the brighter his eventual dawn. Modern parallels abound: grassroots climate movements, digital communities fighting disinformation, even the quiet resurgence of neighborly aid during crises. These aren't just acts of resistance, they're the first tremors of the next Yuga, proof that even in the age of discord, seeds of the golden age still sprout in the cracks. The genius of Kali Yuga lies in its duality. It's both warning and comfort. Yes, the era is bleak, but it's also temporary, a necessary shadow that makes us crave the light. Hindu astrologers even calculate its timeline. We've endured roughly 5,000 years of Kali Yuga, with 400,000 more to go. Yet time in myths is elastic. What matters isn't the countdown, but the choice to live as if Kalki's sword is already sharpened, cutting away pettiness, nurturing truth, and remembering that every yuga, no matter how dark, is just a single turn of the wheel. From the swaying reeds of the Umdanga marshes, a voice hummed the world awake. This is the Zulu story of Unkulunkulu, the first ancestor, who didn't carve or build the cosmos but sang it into being. Imagine a vast expanse of nothing but swaying reeds, their hollow stems whispering in the wind, until one day, a figure steps forth, not with tools or fire, but with a single word. Unkulunkulu emerges already ancient, his voice rough with the weight of all that is yet to be named, and so he begins, each syllable a lightning strike of creation. Ibhuk he calls, and the bull appears, its horns curved like the crescent moon. Inyoni, and the sky fills with wings. Umfula, and water carves its first path through the dust. What's breathtaking here isn't just the power of speech, but the intimacy of it. Unlike the Hebrew, "Let there be light," Unkulunkulu's naming feels conversational, like a parent pointing out stars to a child. He doesn't command from a distant throne. He walks among the reeds, assigning purpose to each creature with the care of a storyteller weaving a tale. Even now, Zulu praise poets Isimbongi channel this tradition, their improvised verses believed to shape reality, just as Unkulunkulu's words once did. Now listen closer. The reeds aren't just a backdrop, they're collaborators. In some versions, they hum along with Unkulunkulu's song, their vibrations tuning the world into harmony. This mirrors scientific theories about vibration as the foundation of matter, how atoms themselves are essentially tiny, singing strings. The Zulu myth captures this elegantly. Creation isn't a one-way broadcast, but a duet between speaker and environment. The parallels to other word-based cosmologies are startling. The Egyptian god Ptah conceives the universe in his heart, then births it through speech. The Aboriginal ancestors sing landscapes into form. Even the Gospel of John opens with, "In the beginning was the Word," yet Unkulunkulu's story stands apart in its earthiness. When he names the Umkhonto spear or Isabaya Kroll, there's no abstraction. These are tools he'll soon teach humans to use. His words don't hover in the metaphysical, they root in the practical, the everyday. This myth's legacy lies in the Zulu concept of Ubuntu, the idea that a person becomes human through relationship, through being named by others. Just as Unkulunkulu's speech called forth existence, so our own words hold power to build or destroy worlds, one conversation at a time. The reeds still whisper this truth. Creation isn't a finished act, but an ongoing chorus, waiting for new voices to join the song. Beneath the soaring peaks of the Andes, where condors carve circles in thin air, the earth itself has a temper. The Inca knew this truth in their bones. Pachamama, the mother of mountains and valleys, was no gentle nurturer. She was a force of terrifying generosity, offering maize from her soil one moment and swallowing whole cities the next. When human arrogance tipped too far, when greed rotted the hearts of rulers or blood-soaked temple steps without purpose, she would shudder awake. The ground would split like an overripe fruit, her jaws yawning wide to reclaim what she had given. This wasn't mere folklore, it was geography written in terror. The Andes are a clenched fist of tectonic violence, where the Nazca Plate grinds beneath South America with the patience of a starving predator. Every quake that toppled Inca stonework, every landslide that buried villages, was Pachamama's verdict. Spanish chroniclers recorded indigenous accounts of entire cities vanishing overnight, not just destroyed but consumed. Sacsayhuaman's fortress walls, said to be fused by divine light, swallowed during the Great Quake of 1587, its stones spat back out in crooked angles like broken teeth. The genius of this myth lies in its ecological precision. Pachamama didn't punish randomly, she targeted imbalance. Overfish her rivers, watch the waters rise to drown your nets. Strip her forests bare, feel the landslides bury your terraces. The Inca built an empire on reciprocity. Aini was their sacred law, demanding that every take be matched by a give. Offerings of chicha beer poured into the soil before planting, gold trinkets buried at mountain shrines, even the occasional human sacrifice, all were premiums paid on a cosmic insurance policy. Break this contract and the Earth's hunger turned ravenous. Modern seismology might map fault lines instead of divine wrath, but the lesson still quivers beneath our feet. When Lima crumbled in 1746, survivors described hearing a growl from underground before the city folded in on itself. Today's scientists confirm the eerie sound. Earthquakes really do produce infrasound rumbles below human hearing. The Inca interpreted these as Pachamama's warning growls, her stomach cramping with disgust at human folly. Consider how this contrasts with other destruction myths. The biblical flood washes clean with water. Ragnarök burns everything to ash, but Pachamama doesn't obliterate, she digests. The difference is key. Swallowed cities aren't erased, they become fertilizer for the next cycle. When archaeologists unearth pre-Inca ruins buried 30 feet deep, they're witnessing myth made literal layers of civilization composted into soil. Each stratum a lesson in what happens when societies forget their debts to the ground beneath them. Perhaps most striking is how this ancient fear curdles into modern reality. The Andes still convulse regularly. In 2007, an 8.0 quake shattered Pisco, killing 500. Local shamans didn't blame plate tectonics. They spoke of mining companies gutting sacred mountains for copper, of politicians selling glacier water to foreign corporations. Pachamama's rage, they whispered, had simply found new targets. The myth endures not as superstition, but as a frame for understanding ecological karma. When you bite the hand that feeds, expect to be bitten back. For 18,000 years, Pangu grew inside the cosmic egg, his limbs pressing against the shell with each breath until the day his strength could no longer be contained. With a roar that shattered the heavens, his axe forged from the purest yang energy cleaved through the egg's membrane, separating the murky yin forces from the luminous yang. The heavy yin sank to form the earth, while the light yang rose to become the sky. But here's where the myth takes a turn that echoes through every Chinese mountain and river. Pangu didn't just create the world and step away. He became it. As the gap between earth and sky widened, Pangu planted his feet on the yin and raised his hands to hold up the yang, his body elongating like the trunk of an ancient cedar. Each day, the sky rose 10 feet higher, the earth grew 10 feet thicker, and Pangu stretched another 10 feet to keep them apart. For another 18,000 years, he stood as the living pillar of the cosmos until at last the heavens were fixed in place. Exhausted, the giant collapsed, and in that moment his body underwent a transformation more profound than death. His breath became the wind and clouds, his voice the rolling thunder. His left eye soared into the sky as the sun, his right eye the moon. His blood pooled into rivers, his veins etched the land with valleys, and his sweat fell as nourishing rain. The fleas on his skin, they leaped into the air as the first humans. This isn't just poetic imagery, it's a masterclass in yin-yang philosophy. Pangu's very corpse embodies balance. His bones became the unyielding mountains yang, while his marrow softened into fertile soil yin. His flesh, solid yet perishable, turned to the rich earth that feeds crops. Even in destruction, Pangu's body refused to take sides. The myth mirrors Taoist cosmology, where chaos isn't an enemy but the raw material of harmony. That cosmic egg, it's the Taijutsu in embryonic form, the black and white swirl of yin and yang waiting to be differentiated. What's haunting is how this myth reflects China's physical landscape. The jagged peaks of the Huangshan Range, often shrouded in mist, seem to rise like Pangu's spine from the clouds. The Yellow River's winding path mirrors the great arteries of his circulatory system. Even the constellations tell his story. The Big Dipper is sometimes called Pangu's chariot, carrying his spirit across the night sky. This isn't metaphor. To traditional Chinese thought, the land is literally alive with Pangu's energy. Modern geologists might smile at the notion of mountains as a giant's bones, but the myth captures a deeper truth about interdependence. Just as Pangu's body sustains the world, so too must humans live in reciprocity with it. Cut down too many trees, you're shearing Pangu's hair. Pollute the rivers, you're poisoning his blood. The myth doesn't just explain origins, it issues a warning written in the very contours of the earth. Yet for all its grandeur, the tale carries an intimate whisper. Pangu's final act wasn't one of domination, but of surrender. He didn't cling to life, he gave it, dissolving so the world might breathe. In a culture that reveres ancestors, this self-sacrifice resonates deeply. The first ancestor isn't a distant figure to worship, but one whose flesh you walk upon with every step. To till soil or drink from a stream is to commune with Pangu himself, a reminder that creation isn't something that happened once. It's still happening every time a seedling cracks open the earth to reach for the sky. The crows gather first black wings, blotting out the sun as the Morrigan perches on a blood-stained battlefield, her voice hoarse from screaming prophecies no one heeded. This is the Celtic apocalypse, not with the thunder of Norse Ragnarök, but with the slow, inevitable creep of seawater over the land. She doesn't predict the end, she mourns it, watching as kings who ignored her warnings are swallowed by tides thicker than mead, their golden talks sinking like stones. Unlike Odin's frantic preparations for Ragnarök, the Celtic gods face their twilight with eerie resignation. Dagda's magical cauldron, which once fed armies, now scrapes empty. Lug's spear, which never missed its mark, lies broken in the sand. The great hall of Tara rots from the inside, its timbers groaning like dying men. What makes this doom unique is its liquid silence. The Norse apocalypse burns bright with screaming gods and cracking sky, but the Celtic world ends with a whimper drowned under waves that don't even bother to roar. The Morrigan's crows don't flee, they drown mid-flight, their feathers waterlogged as the last hilltops vanish. No rebirth follows, no green shoots push through ash. Just the sea's cold grip, claiming everything from the tallest standing stones to the smallest harpist song. Yet hidden in this bleakness is a subtle rebellion. The Morrigan isn't some passive seer, she's the architect of her own prophecy, choosing which warriors survive long enough to witness the end. Her warnings aren't pleas, they're tests. Those who listen, like the legendary Bran the Blessed, transform into legends themselves, their stories bobbing to the surface even as their bodies sink. The myth whispers a chilling lesson: annihilation isn't the tragedy. The real tragedy is forgetting to sing until the water fills your lungs. Compare this to Ragnarok's fiery spectacle. The Norse gods die swinging swords, the Celtic gods fade like mist at dawn. One is a balm, the other a slow poison, both endings, but one leaves salt in the soil where nothing can grow, while the other leaves embers where everything might. Before the first rib was shaped into Eve, before the forbidden fruit hung heavy on the branch, there was a single moment that set humanity apart from all other creations, the instant Yahweh leaned down and breathed into Adam's nostrils. This wasn't just any breath. The Hebrew scriptures call it ruach, a word that crackles with dual meaning. It signifies wind, spirit, and the very force that stirs the seas and bends cedars, now condensed into one divine exhale. Imagine the intimacy, the Creator's lips nearly brushing clay still damp from the riverbank, his breath flooding Adam's lungs like a bellows igniting embers. Other myths carve humans from wood or mold them from cornmeal, but here, life comes not from craft alone but from shared breath, a god literally giving himself to his creation. Now contrast this with the Mesopotamian myth of Enki and Ninmah, where humans are assembly line workers molded from clay to replace toiling gods. There's no breath, no spark, just functional design like pottery fired in a kiln. Even the Egyptian god Num shapes babies on his potter's wheel, their destinies etched before they draw first air. Genesis's Ruach introduces something radical, animation as communion. That breath doesn't just jumpstart Adam's heart, it links him eternally to the divine, making every human sigh, laugh, or prayer an echo of that first sacred gust. The power of Ruach reverberates through Abrahamic theology like a heartbeat. In the Talmud, it's the breath that grants Adam language, the ability to name animals not just with labels but with understanding. The New Testament rekindles it as Pneuma, the Holy Spirit descending like fire at Pentecost. Quranic verses describe Allah breathing His Spirit into humans, making every soul a carrier of the divine. This isn't just biological life, it's purpose inhaled, a reminder that humans aren't accidents of matter, but vessels housing something uncontainable. Yet the tension lies in what followed. That same breath made humans free enough to disobey, to choose exile over obedience. Unlike the flawless clay golems of other myths, Adam's divinely animated flesh carried paradox, glory, and frailty woven together. Early Christian mystics would later meditate on this, picturing Eden's air thick with ruach, every leaf trembling with the breath that first woke humanity from dust. Science may explain respiration as oxygen exchange, but Genesis insists there's more, that every gasp still carries the ghost of that first shuddering inhale. The earth shudders as the rainbow serpent uncoils from her ancient slumber, her scales shimmering with the colors of storm and sunlight. Australian Aboriginal cultures tell of this primal being who shaped the land itself, carving riverbeds with her body and leaving waterholes where she paused to rest. But when humans break sacred laws, when they hunt recklessly, disrespect elders, or desecrate ceremonial sites, her patience snaps like a dry branch. The sky darkens not with clouds, but with her rising fury, and the rains come not as gentle life-givers, but as her thrashing tears. What follows isn't just a flood, it's the world scrubbed clean, villages swallowed by churning waters, fire pits extinguished by the deluge, and the unworthy dragged into the depths as warning to those who remain. Yet this isn't mindless wrath. The rainbow serpent's punishment is precise, targeting imbalance like a surgeon's blade. In Arnhem Land traditions, she doesn't drown all life indiscriminately. The wise, the respectful, those who heeded the elders' warnings, they're spared, guided to high ground or transformed into stone formations that still stand today as reminders. The flood isn't an end, it's a reset, washing away greed and arrogance so the land can breathe again. When the waters recede, they leave behind not just mud but renewal, freshwater lakes where salt once lingered, rejuvenated soil where crops will flourish, and a people humbled enough to listen. Compare this to other flood myths. Noah's Ark saves a single righteous family. Utnapishtim survives through divine trickery, but the rainbow serpent's judgment is communal. Those who respected kinship ties, who honored the web of life, find safety woven into the land itself. A twist of vine here, a suddenly buoyant log there. The message is clear. Survival isn't about individual virtue, but collective responsibility. Even now, Aboriginal elders point to geographical scars, unexpected bends in rivers, inexplicably placed boulders, as evidence of her corrective fury. The true brilliance of this myth lies in its aftermath. Where biblical floods end with a rainbow promise never to destroy again, the rainbow serpent makes no such guarantees. Her rainbow isn't a ceasefire, it's her very skin, a shimmering reminder that she is both beauty and terror, giver and enforcer. Australian communities still perform rainmaking ceremonies not to control her, but to reassure her of their reverence. They know the land's thirst can too easily become its drowning, and the difference between the two is often human hands. Modern ecologists see startling wisdom here. The serpent's floods mimic nature's own corrective mechanisms, bushfires that seem catastrophic but trigger seed germination, cyclones that prune overgrown forests. Her wrath isn't arbitrary, it's ecological balance written in stormwater and silt. When climate change brings unprecedented floods to Australia's north, Aboriginal elders nod grimly. The serpent is stirring again, they whisper, because the world has forgotten how to listen. Beneath the scorching gaze of the Egyptian sun, where the Nile's lifeblood carves through desert silence, the heavens were once a river of milk, spilled from the udders of a cosmic cow so vast her body arched across the sky. This is Mehit-Weti, the Great Flood, a celestial being whose name whispers of primordial waters and whose flanks shimmer with the light of unborn stars. Unlike the violent separations of other creation myths, gods tearing apart parents or slaying monsters, Hathor's bovine form offers a gentler genesis. Her milk doesn't just nourish, it becomes. Each drop curdles into a star, streaming across the night sky as the Milky Way, a shimmering testament to creation as nurture rather than conquest. What's mesmerizing here is how the myth mirrors Egypt's own lifeline. Just as Mehit-Weti's milk sustains the cosmos, the Nile's annual floods replenish the fields with fertile silt, both divine and earthly sustenance flowing from a single sacred source. The cow's horns even curve like the crescent moon, linking her to cycles of renewal and Hathor's dual role as goddess of both the heavens and the erotic. This isn't accidental symbolism. In a land where cattle were wealth incarnate, the image of a celestial cow bridged the mundane and the mystical, transforming dairy into divinity. A peasant milking a village cow under the stars could glimpse the same cosmic act playing out overhead. But Mehit-Weti's legend holds a darker undercurrent. In one pyramid text, she isn't just a passive font of milk but a fierce protector. When the sun god Ra retreats from humanity's corruption, it's Hathor as cow who lifts him onto her back, carrying him safely across the sky's vault like a calf shielded from predators. Later, in her vengeful Sekhmet aspect, she nearly devours mankind, until beer dyed red to mimic blood lulls her into a drunken stupor, softening her back into the gentle Mehit-Werti. The lesson, creation and destruction aren't opposites, they're two sides of the same udder. A mother's milk can sustain or drown depending on how her children behave. This duality pulses through Egyptian art. Tomb paintings show Hathor's cow form emerging from the western mountains, the land of the dead, her milk a promise of rebirth. The Book of the Dead even depicts the deceased drinking directly from her teats, an eternal communion with the divine. Meanwhile, priestesses in her temples performed rituals with actual cows, their sacred milk believed to carry regenerative power. The line between myth and ritual blurs here. By channeling Mehit-Werti, these women became conduits of cosmic nourishment. Compared to other maternal creator figures like Gaia or Papatuanuku, Hathor's bovine avatar is strikingly tactile. You can't embrace the earth or kiss the sky, but you can press your hands against a cow's warm flank, feel her breath fog the pre-dawn air. The myth collapses distance between the infinite and the intimate. When an Egyptian looked up at the Milky Way, they didn't see abstract stars, they saw the spilled milk of a being as familiar as the herds grazing by the riverbank. Modern astronomy might map the galaxy's spiral arms and black holes, but the Egyptians understood something science is only now grasping. We're made of stardust, yes, but also something more poetic. We're children of a universe that doesn't just explode into being, but nurses it into existence one slow, sacred drop at a time. The sky wept embers as Svarog's forge cracked open, not a slow decay, but a cataclysm of heat so fierce it turned rivers to steam and mountains to molten glass. In Slavic myth, the world's end comes not with flood or frost, but in the unrelenting grip of fire, a purging blaze ordained by the very smith god who once hammered the sun into being. Unlike Ragnarök's battlefield chaos or the Aztec's earthquake collapse, Svarog's apocalypse is methodical, inevitable as a blacksmith's furnace consuming its last coal. His hammer strikes one final time, splintering the celestial anvil, and the heavens themselves rain white-hot shards onto the earth below. Yet this isn't mindless annihilation. The flames carry a brutal mercy, searing away corruption like a physician cauterizing a wound. Folk tales describe how the wicked, those who hoarded grain during famine or betrayed kinship oaths, crumble to ash in moments, while the just endure the fire's touch like gold in a crucible emerging brighter. The parallels to the phoenix are undeniable, but where the phoenix resurrects alone, Slavic tradition insists the entire world earns its rebirth. Villagers in the Carpathians still whisper of the old fires, pointing to scorch marks on ancient oaks as proof of past cleansings, each one making way for a fresher, fairer age. Archaeology lends eerie credence to these stories. Layers of ash in Slavic burial mounds suggest deliberate burnings, not of bodies but of entire settlements, a ritual echo of Svarog's cosmic reset. Even the word for world in Old Church Slavonic, svet, means both light and order, hinting at an intrinsic link between fire and renewal. The myth's genius lies in its cyclical pragmatism. Just as farmers burn fields to nourish next year's crops, Svarog's conflagration isn't an end, but the first step in replanting the cosmos. Modern ecologists might nod in grim recognition. Controlled burns revitalize ecosystems by clearing dead wood and invasive species, a mirrored truth to Svarog's purging flames. The myth endures not as fantasy, but as a stark metaphor. Sometimes growth demands surrender. New seedlings can't push through unburdened soil, and neither can justice thrive where greed's roots run too deep. When Ukrainian folk singers lament the fiery years of Mongol invasions or Stalin's purges, they're invoking Svarog's shadow, not just mourning loss, but stubbornly trusting in the green tendrils that always follow the burn. From the swirling mists over Onondaga Lake, two figures emerge, not gods, not spirits, but brothers bound by blood and bitter rivalry. This is the Iroquois creation story of Flint and Sapling, twins who shaped the world not through harmony but through relentless opposition. Sapling, the elder, moves with the gentle precision of a potter smoothing clay. Where his fingers brush the earth, rivers curve into navigable bends, berry bushes grow plump with fruit, and valleys slope just enough to catch the morning sun. But Flint, the younger, follows like a shadow, twisting every gift into a challenge. He sharpens saplings rolling hills into jagged cliffs, poisons the clear springs with sulfur, and hardens the soil until roots crack trying to pierce it. What sets this myth apart isn't just the duality, it's the intimate scale of the conflict. These aren't distant cosmic forces locked in abstract battle. They're siblings squabbling over the same patch of dirt, their feud etching itself into the very landscape. When Sapling carves a gentle path for the Mohawk River, Flint rams boulders into its course, creating the treacherous rapids that still churn today. The myth mirrors the Iroquois understanding of nature's duality. A forest provides medicine and shelter, but also hides predators and storms. Balance isn't static perfection, it's an ongoing negotiation, like two hands wrestling over a lump of wet clay. The brilliance lies in how this tension births utility. Flint's malice forces Sapling's kindness to deepen. Those poison springs, Sapling transforms them into mineral-rich healing waters. The jagged cliffs Flint designed to cut travelers' feet become sacred sites where eagles nest. Even Flint's ultimate act of spite, burying monstrous creatures in the earth, backfires when Sapling tames them into guardian spirits. This isn't good erasing evil, it's good outsmarting it, using opposition as a whetstone to sharpen creation's edge. Compare this to other dualistic cosmogonies. Zoroastrianism pits Ahura Mazda against Angra Mainyu in a clean light versus dark divide. The Iroquois twins, though, are more nuanced. Flint isn't pure evil, he's the necessary friction that keeps creation from growing soft. His harsh winters teach resilience, his thorns protect tender plants from overgrazing. Even his name hints at value. Flint sparks fire, crafts tools, sustains life even as it wounds. Modern ecologists see this wisdom echoed in wildfire management. Controlled burns prevent catastrophic ones, just as Flint's controlled chaos prevents stagnation. The myth's climax reveals its deepest lesson. When Flint is finally defeated, not destroyed, but bound beneath a mountain, his restless energy doesn't vanish. It simmers in hot springs and rumbles in earthquakes, a reminder that harmony isn't the absence of conflict, but its careful containment. Iroquois elders still point to geological oddities, a sudden gorge, a peculiarly placed waterfall, as scars from the brothers' struggle, proof that the world wasn't made perfect but made perfectible through tension. The twins' legacy isn't a finished creation but an unfinished conversation written in stone and stream. Hina's feet barely touch the waves as she flees. Each step sends tsunamis crashing against the reef. Each sob sends tides surging inland. In Polynesian legend, the moon wasn't always a distant, cold observer. It was a refuge for the goddess Hina, who leaped from the shores of Tahiti to escape her husband's rage, her tears scattering as bioluminescent plankton in her wake. But her flight wasn't just a personal escape, it was cosmic upheaval. The moment her fingers grasped the moon's pocked surface, the oceans below lost their rhythm. Waves forgot their tides, surging unpredictably like panicked herds, while fishermen's nets tangled in currents that now pulsed with Hina's erratic heartbeat. What's haunting about this myth is how it roots celestial phenomena in raw emotion. Unlike scientific explanations of gravitational pull, the Polynesians saw the tides as Hina's lingering distress, a divine homesickness made tangible. When the moon waxes full, it's Hina peering back at the earth, her longing pulling the sea toward her. When it wanes, she turns away and the waters slump in despair. Even the word for ocean in many Polynesian languages carries echoes of her name, as if the sea itself remembers its lost mistress. Now consider the global echoes. The Japanese moon goddess Kaguya flees earthly suffering in her bamboo cradle, her departure leaving crops to wither. The Aztec Metzli, goddess of the moon, is dismembered by jealous stars, her fragments forming the first rabbit-shaped shadows we still see today. But Hina's story stands apart in its aquatic intimacy. While others tie the moon to harvests or timekeeping, Polynesian lore binds it irrevocably to the sea's pulse, a relationship so precise that traditional navigators used lunar phases to predict tidal surges millennia before Newton penned his theories. Modern oceanography reveals an eerie truth. The moon does influence more than tides. Coral reefs sync their spawning to lunar cycles. Eels wriggle ashore under specific moonlight. The science aligns with the myth's intuition that the moon's pull isn't just mechanical but almost emotional, an invisible thread tugging at life itself. When Hina's descendants chant her name during lunar eclipses, they aren't just preserving folklore, they're acknowledging a bond deeper than gravity. Yet the myth carries a warning. Hina's flight didn't just alter tides, it fragmented her family. Her son Maui would later lasso the sun to avenge her, straining the heavens in ways that still ripple through Polynesian starlore. The moon's fall isn't just a story of escape, it's a lesson in unintended consequences, how one being's liberation can send entire systems spiraling. Next time you watch the tide retreat, listen closely. The hush of withdrawing waves might just be Hina whispering apologies to the shores she left behind. The riverbank is silent except for the slap of wet clay between divine palms. Enki, the cunning god of fresh waters, needs the muddy earth as his consort Ninhursag presses fingerprints into the pliant flesh of their latest creation. This is Mesopotamian Genesis, not a grand celestial pronouncement, but the messy intimacy of artisans shaping life from river, silt, and spit. Unlike Adam animated by Yahweh's breath or the Maori pressed from Papa's soil, these first humans emerge from a collaboration laced with pragmatism. The gods are tired, the lesser deities have rebelled against back-breaking labor-digging canals, harvesting crops, and Enki's solution is equal parts ingenuity and exploitation. Why not fashion a new workforce from the very earth they'll till? What's striking is the crude physicality of it. Cuneiform tablets describe Ninhursag pinching limbs like a potter perfecting a vase, while Enki infuses the clay with his essence, not the spark of soul, but the dull throb of servitude. These aren't exalted beings made in a god's image, they're mud figurines baked in the kiln of divine necessity. The myth's brilliance lies in its honesty. Humanity's origins are transactional. We weren't born from love or cosmic accident, but because someone needed ditch diggers. Now compare this to Prometheus's fire theft in Greek lore. Both stories feature gods crafting humans from clay, but the motivations diverge like branching rivers. Enki molds workers to maintain cosmic order. Prometheus shapes companions and gifts them fire against Zeus's will, an act of defiance that chains him to a rock for eternity. The Mesopotamian myth is a lesson in hierarchy, while the Greek version champions rebellion. One justifies human toil as preordained, the other frames it as an injustice to overcome. Yet both share an unsettling truth. Humans are born from conflict. In Mesopotamia, we're the compromise to prevent divine strikes. In Greece, we're the unintended consequence of Titan defiance. Neither culture flinches from portraying creation as collateral damage in larger battles, our very flesh imprinted with the fingerprints of quarreling gods. Archaeology breathes life into these tales. Excavated kilns from ancient Ur show terracotta figurines with exaggerated features, likely ritual stand-ins for human laborers. Perhaps these votives carried prayers for endurance, whispered by workers who saw themselves in their mud ancestors. Meanwhile, Greek vases depict Prometheus bent over his clay figures, Athena leaning in to gift them reason, a visual echo of the Mesopotamian assembly line, but with wisdom replacing servitude. The irony, both cultures' creations outlasted their makers. Marduk and Zeus faded into textbooks, but the image of gods hunched over wet clay endures in children's Bible classes, in sci-fi debates about artificial life, even in modern phrases like only human. We've never shaken the primal notion that we're something molded, imperfect, and above all, used. Next time you feel exhausted by endless labor, remember, even the gods took shortcuts. The sea ice groans as it thickens, its cracks sealing like healing wounds, a sound that means hunger is coming. In the frozen expanse of the Arctic, the Inuit tell of Sedna, the one-fingered goddess who rules the depths, her hair snarled with the sins of the ungrateful. She wasn't always monstrous. Once she was a betrayed girl thrown into the waves by her own father, her fingers severed as she clung to the kayak's edge, sinking into the abyss where her rage festered like frostbite. Now, when hunters grow greedy, taking more seals than needed or mocking the ocean's power, Sedna's single hand clenches shut. The animals vanish into her tangled hair, the winds sharpen into knives, and the winter stretches its jaws wide enough to swallow the sun whole. This isn't just a cautionary tale, it's an ecological prophecy carved in ice. The Inuit didn't merely fear Sedna's wrath, they mapped it. When blizzards lasted too long or seals grew scarce, shamans would descend in trances to comb the snarls from her hair, bargaining with songs and apologies. Her curse wasn't arbitrary, it was cause and effect written in blizzards and empty stomachs. Disrespect the balance and the balance bites back. Modern climatologists hear eerie parallels in these stories, the Arctic's warming, once dismissed as myth, now unraveling with the same ferocity as Sedna's storms. What makes this myth devastating is its intimacy with hunger. Unlike floods or fires that erase civilizations in grand gestures, Sedna's punishment is slow, a tightening noose of cold and starvation. Families huddle in snow houses, their breath crystallizing on the walls as they divide dwindling strips of blubber. The Inuktitut word adjuanota, never give up, takes on crushing weight here, a mantra against the creeping silence of an empty larder. This isn't Ragnarök's spectacle, it's the whimper of a child's stomach, the hollow clatter of bones in the cooking pot. Yet there's a brutal wisdom in Sedna's severity. Her winter isn't just punishment, it's correction. Inuit hunters recite a proverb, the sea does not give freely. Every seal taken is a gift, every walrus tusk a loan. When anthropologists documented traditional hunts, they found rituals modern fisheries might scoff at: skulls returned to the water, gratitude chanted over carcasses. These weren't superstitions, they were the fine print of survival in a world where overharvesting meant extinction. Sedna's tangled hair, then, becomes a metaphor for overexploitation, the chaotic mess left when humans yank too greedily at nature's threads. Now watch the Arctic today, where permafrost melts and ice roads vanish. Sedna's curse has new scribes, satellites tracking vanishing sea ice, biologists noting starved polar bears. The goddess's hunger, once placated by shamans, now gnaws at pipeline rigs and military bases. Scientists call it feedback loops and albedo effect. The elders nod and murmur her name. The lesson hasn't changed, only the scale. Disrespect still summons the starving winter, but this time her fingers aren't just clutching seals, they're unraveling the world. Before there was form, before there was light, there was only a single syllable echoing through the void: Aum, the primal vibration that set the cosmos humming to life. In Tibetan Buddhist traditions, creation doesn't begin with a clash of gods or a cosmic egg cracking open, but with a sound so pure it resonates through every atom of existence. Imagine the first instant as a taut string plucked by an unseen hand, its tone rippling outward to become mountains, rivers, and stars. This isn't just poetry, it's a metaphysical blueprint for reality itself, where the universe isn't built from matter but from vibration. The syllable Aum or Am isn't merely a word, it's a layered manifesto of existence. The A represents birth, the throat's open sound mirroring the Big Bang's explosive dawn. The U sustains, a mid-tone hum echoing the universe's steady expansion. The M closes the lips, a decay that whispers of entropy and eventual dissolution. Together, they form a sonic trinity, a cycle as timeless as breathing. Tibetan monks still chant it today, their voices merging with the same frequency that first stirred the void. Now, here's where myth collides with modern science. Quantum physicists speak of string theory, where the smallest particles aren't dots but vibrating strings, their oscillations determining whether they become quarks or quasars. The Higgs boson, the so-called God particle, is essentially a ripple in an invisible field, a cosmic hum granting mass to matter. Even the residual static of the Big Bang, detected as cosmic microwave background radiation, is essentially the universe's earliest sound wave, stretched over billions of years into a whisper. The Tibetans weren't just meditating, they were reverse engineering creation's soundtrack. What's haunting is how this mirrors the Tibetan concept of emptiness, not a void, but a fertile silence pregnant with potential. The Aum isn't a thing, it's the possibility of things, the way a single note contains every harmony it might one day become. Compare this to other sound-based cosmogonies, the Aboriginal ancestors' songlines, the Hindu Nada Brahman sound as divine essence, even the Bible's "Let there be light," a spoken command. But the Tibetan vision is uniquely recursive. The universe isn't just made of sound, it's listening to itself, a self-aware echo chasing its own tail. Modern acoustics reveals an eerie truth. Everything vibrates, from electrons buzzing around nuclei to galaxies spinning in their gravitational grooves. Tibetan singing bowls, tuned to Aum's frequency, demonstrate how resonance can shape matter. Water in a bowl forms intricate geometric patterns when the rim is struck. It's a miniature Big Bang in a bronze vessel, a reminder that creation's recipe might be simpler than we thought, just add sound. Yet the myth's deepest lesson isn't about origins, it's about attention. If the universe began with a syllable, then every word we speak, every bird's call, every gust of wind is a variation on that first cosmic utterance. To chant Aum isn't just to honor the past, it's to participate in the ongoing act of creation, tuning our tiny frequencies back to the source. The next time you hear a river's rush or the rumble of thunder, listen closely. That's not noise, it's the universe remembering itself. The heavens didn't just crack, they shattered like a dropped porcelain bowl, gaping holes torn through the celestial dome by the rebel god Gongong's furious charge. Rivers of starlight bled from the wounds, flooding the earth below with scorching rays that withered crops and split the earth. But this isn't a story of irreversible ruin, and it's a myth of radical repair. Enter Nuwa, serpent-tailed and steady-handed, who doesn't annihilate the chaos but mends it, gathering 5 colored stones from the riverbeds to stitch the sky back together. These aren't ordinary stones. Each hue, azure, crimson, gold, white, and black, corresponds to an element: wood, fire, earth, metal, water. Nuwa doesn't just plug the gaps, she rebalances the cosmos itself, fusing the stones with a mortar of melted rainbow clouds. What's revolutionary here is the metaphor. Destruction isn't final, and creation isn't a one-time act. The heavens, like pottery, can be kintsugi-ed with care, their fractures made beautiful by the very act of repair. Compare this to other cosmic fixes. The Norse gods brace for Ragnarok's fiery end. The Aztecs feed the sun to stave off collapse. Nuwa's approach is quieter but no less profound. She doesn't conquer or demand sacrifice, she works, her fingers calloused from grinding stones, her tail scaled with clay from patching the earth's fissures. Even the stones themselves reject extravagance. They're not jewels from divine vaults, but ordinary river rocks transformed by purpose. The myth's endurance lies in its practicality. Chinese builders still reference Nuwa when restoring ancient roofs, their tiles layered like her stone mosaic. Astronomers note how her repaired sky explains the Milky Way's patchy brilliance, not a flawless veil, but a masterwork of visible seams. Modern ecologists see her in reef restoration projects where scientists graft living coral onto dead frames, weaving life back into broken ecosystems. Yet there's a haunting footnote. One stone was left unused, the black one, its energy too unstable. Some say it became the black holes that still gape in space, reminders that not all damage can be undone. Nuwa's lesson isn't about perfection, it's about perseverance. The sky still leaks sometimes meteors, solar flares, but her patches hold, a testament to the radical idea that broken doesn't mean beyond saving. Stand under any sunset streaked with 5 colors and you're witnessing more than light refracting through dust. You're seeing Nuwa's handiwork, a universe that refuses to stay shattered.